Welcome to a new episode of Animal Quests. Today, we're diving into the dark waters to uncover 6 of the most fatal shark attacks on innocent human beings. Let's dive straight into the first story. The morning of September 9th, 2014, unfolded like many others in Byron Bay. The sun rose gently over the horizon, casting a soft golden light across the calm waters of the Pacific. Byron Bay, renowned for its long stretches of pristine beaches and laid-back lifestyle, was stirring to life once again. Yet, beneath its tranquil surface, the waters off Byron Bay held a more dangerous side. Home to a variety of marine life, including great whites, bull sharks, and tiger sharks, it was a place where the risks, though rare, could become reality. The last fatal shark attack in the area had occurred in 1993, a distant memory for most. But that morning was about to change everything. Paul Wilcox was one of many who found solace in Byron Bay's beauty. A 50-year-old British expat, he had been drawn to the area a decade earlier, embracing its easygoing lifestyle. Each morning, he followed a familiar routine, heading to the beach to enjoy a peaceful swim in the bay's cool waters. Paul's wife, Victoria, walked alongside him. They had developed a pattern of fitness together. She would jog along the shore while he swam, each returning to the same spot afterward. The ocean, familiar and calm, was where Paul felt most at peace. Little did he know, today would be the last time he'd enter those waters. After sharing a goodbye kiss at their usual spot by the shoreline, Paul and his wife parted ways, agreeing to meet for a drink at their favorite cafe after their swim and run. It was part of their cherished routine, something they both looked forward to each morning. As Victoria jogged along the sandy beach, Paul waded confidently into the water. The cool ocean washed over his feet as he moved further out. The beach was lively but not overly crowded. Paul swam out about 50 feet from the shore, the water calm and familiar. After about 20 minutes of swimming, Paul felt a sense of satisfaction. His usual routine was nearly complete, and it was time to turn back. He knew Victoria's run would soon be ending. He turned and began swimming along the length of the beach, his body moving smoothly through the water. But beneath him, a silent predator was closing in. A 7-foot great white shark, drawn by the ocean currents, had been swimming parallel to the shore. Its dark shadow moved unnoticed through the water, its eyes fixed on the shapes above. As Paul adjusted his course, the shark too shifted its path, aligning perfectly with his movement. Then, without warning, the shark struck. A violent tug yanked Paul's leg, sharp and jarring. His body jolted as the shark's powerful jaws clamped down, its serrated teeth cutting through muscle and tissue with deadly precision. Blood poured into the water, turning the blue waves into a dark, swirling red. Paul struggled to stay above the surface, but the shark's grip was unyielding. On the shore, people began to notice the disturbance. One man, 52-year-old Mark Hickey, was walking along the beach when he saw the commotion in the water. From a distance, it looked like a dark shape, a tangle of seaweed or maybe a turtle. But as he squinted through the glare of the sun, the horrifying truth became clear. It wasn't seaweed, and it wasn't a turtle. It was a man, and circling him was a shark. Without thinking, Mark sprinted toward the water. As he dived into the ocean, he could see the blood clouding the water. The shark had released Paul momentarily, but the damage was already done. Paul, barely conscious, was drifting. Mark swam as fast as he could, grabbing Paul and pulling him toward the shore. The predator circled again, drawn by the scent of blood, but Mark didn't stop. He fought against the current and the overwhelming terror that the shark might strike again. Onlookers screamed for help. The beach, once peaceful, had turned into a scene of panic. Lifeguards raced to the water, but by the time they reached Mark and Paul, it was too late. Paul's body was limp, his face pale. Mark dragged him onto the sand, performing CPR desperately as paramedics arrived, but there was nothing anyone could do. Paul Wilcox was pronounced dead on the scene, the injuries too severe, the blood loss too great. As the news spread, the beach emptied, the once bustling shore now a quiet, haunted place. Helicopters and lifeguards searched for the shark, which had vanished back into the deep, its massive body still visible below the surface as it moved away. Victoria, still jogging when the attack happened, arrived to a horrific sight. A crowd gathered around a motionless figure on the sand, paramedics working frantically. Her heart sank as she realized the figure was her husband. The nightmare was real. The peaceful routine that had defined their mornings was shattered forever. The great white shark that had claimed Paul's life was never caught. Despite sightings and the search efforts, it returned to the ocean, leaving behind only grief and fear in a place that had once been a sanctuary. Byron Bay would never feel the same again. On the afternoon of October 14, 1972, the sun hung low over the calm waters off Byron Bay, St. Croix. Known for its crystal-clear waters and dramatic underwater walls, Byron Bay was a diver's paradise, drawing both scientists and thrill-seekers from around the world. That day, the ocean was particularly serene, its surface gently rippling under the Caribbean sun. For three experienced divers, Brett Gilliam, Rod Temple, and Robbie McIlvaine, it seemed like the perfect day for their latest research expedition. The trio was on a scientific mission, exploring the famous Byron Bay Wall and documenting marine life. Equipped with full diving gear, including wetsuits, tanks, and harnesses, they descended into the deep blue. Brett and Robbie focused on collecting samples and taking notes, while Rod, the dive leader, stayed at a lower depth to finish some observations and monitor their overall progress. Their routine was practiced and precise. Each diver knew their role and limits. After about 30 minutes enjoying the dive, Brett and Robbie felt their work was nearly complete as they began wrapping up at around 175 feet. Everything had gone smoothly, but when they realized they hadn't heard or seen anything from Rod, positioned deeper, a sense of unease set in. Pausing their ascent, they waited for Rod to surface, but he still didn't appear. Robbie, scanning the water below, noticed bubbles rising from the depths, a clear sign something was wrong. While Robbie, running low on air, slowly ascended to the surface, Brett, with enough air in his tank, made the quick decision to dive back down, thinking Rod might be dealing with a minor gear issue. But what Brett found would turn their routine dive into a nightmare. When Brett reached Rod, he was confronted with a horrifying sight. A massive oceanic white-tipped shark had clamped its powerful jaws around Rod's left thigh, its body circling just beneath him. The once clear water was now clouded with Rod's blood, turning the surrounding area into a murky red haze. Rod was barely able to fight back, his movements weak as he struggled to push the predator away. Acting on instinct, Brett approached cautiously, knowing the shark could easily turn on him at any moment. As he neared, the oceanic white-tip loosened its grip on Rod's leg, seemingly preparing for another strike. Seizing the opportunity, Brett lunged forward, grabbing hold of Rod's shoulder harness and pulling with all his strength, trying to drag him upward and away from the shark's deadly jaws. Rod, weakened and bleeding heavily, could barely help. Just as Brett started to pull Rod to safety, the shark surged again, striking with brutal force and knocking Brett off balance. Before Brett could regain control, another oceanic white-tip shark appeared from the depths, just as large and aggressive. It attacked Rod's leg, tearing away chunks of flesh with terrifying ease. Brett fought back fiercely, punching at the sharks in a desperate attempt to save his friend, but the predators were relentless, pulling Rod deeper into the ocean. Brett held on, refusing to abandon his friend, but the combined force of the sharks dragged them toward the edge of the underwater wall. As they descended past 300 feet, Brett, now running dangerously low on air, saw Rod's eyes meet his. Barely conscious, Rod gave Brett a final, pained look, silently urging him to save himself. With no other choice, Brett knew he had to let go. As the sharks circled back for another attack, they ripped Rod from Brett's grip, dragging his mangled body into the abyss. Brett, now alone and nearly out of air, fought to stay conscious as he made his desperate ascent toward the surface. Every movement was a struggle, his vision fading as his oxygen-starved brain began to shut down. With his air supply almost depleted, Brett lost consciousness just before reaching the surface, his body floating upward, carried only by the small volume of air in his safety vest. Miraculously, Brett woke up gasping for air at the surface, dazed and disoriented. His survival was nothing short of a 1 in a million chance. Robbie, who had been anxiously watching from the boat, spotted him and rushed to pull Brett aboard. The relief of seeing his friend alive was quickly overshadowed by the grim reality that Rod was gone, lost to the depths. Without hesitation, Robbie steered the boat back to shore as fast as possible, trying to keep Brett conscious during the critical moments. Once they reached shore, an ambulance was already waiting, providing urgent care to stabilize Brett before transporting him to Schneider Regional Medical Center on St. Thomas. There, doctors treated him for severe exhaustion and the early stages of decompression sickness. Though he survived, Brett was left with lasting physical scars, numbness in his limbs, partial hearing loss, and damage to his vision that would never fully heal. Robbie and Brett attended Rod's memorial service a week later. Rod's body was never recovered, swallowed by the ocean's depths. The experience left both survivors marked by the ordeal, their lives forever changed by what began as a routine dive but turned into a nightmare. On July 12, 2013, Tessa Caldwell and Jude Bennett, both 26, embarked on a kayaking trip off the coast of California. The two had met several years earlier during the Pacific Coast Kayak Challenge, a well-known regional competition that attracted athletes from across the state. Both Tessa and Jude had quickly bonded over their shared passion for the sport, and since then, they had often trained together, pushing each other to new limits. This particular trip was part of their preparation for the California Coastal Triathlon, an intense competition that included a challenging ocean kayaking segment. That day, the conditions seemed perfect for another training session. At 8 a.m., with the sun beginning to rise higher in the sky, Tessa and Jude set off from Latigo Point toward Paradise Cove in their usual kayaks, bought some time ago and tested through many waves over the years. The journey began smoothly, with Tessa and Jude maintaining a steady pace as they paddled side by side. The route they followed is a popular one among local kayakers, known for its scenic views and typically peaceful waters. Having paddled this stretch many times before, Tessa and Jude felt safe in their kayaks, secure in both their abilities and the familiarity of the surroundings. But the sense of safety was deceptive. Unbeknownst to them, the warm waters that made for ideal kayaking conditions also attracted tiger sharks, predators known for their strength and aggression. The tranquility of the afternoon was about to be shattered. Approximately an hour into their journey, as they approached a stretch of open water, the situation changed abruptly. Without any prior warning, a large tiger shark, about 12 feet in length, appeared from below. The shark struck with significant force, ramming into Tessa's kayak from beneath. The impact was immediate, causing her kayak to capsize and throwing her into the ocean. Tessa gasped in shock, a scream escaping her as she hit the water, but before she could fully comprehend what was happening, she was dragged under the surface. Her overturned kayak floated nearby, offering no protection. The tiger shark, known for its aggressive behavior and powerful bite, circled back. Within moments, it launched a second attack targeting Tessa. The shark clamped its jaws onto her right thigh, pulling her beneath the waves once more. The water churned as she struggled, the wound deep and severe. After attacking Tessa, the shark released her and swam away, leaving her injured and adrift in the water. Jude, who had been paddling just a short distance away, witnessed the horrific attack. Though shocked and terrified, his instincts kicked in, and he knew he had to act quickly. He maneuvered his kayak toward his companion, reaching her within seconds. With swift and decisive action, Jude pulled Tessa partially onto his kayak, securing her across the back as best as he could in the situation. He immediately began paddling toward the shore, knowing it would take around 8 minutes to reach safety. The return trip, through the same waters where the attack had occurred, felt much longer with the extra weight and urgency. Upon reaching the beach, he immediately alerted nearby beachgoers and told them to call an ambulance. Thankfully, first responders arrived within minutes. They assessed Tessa's condition, noting the significant blood loss and the severity of her wound. Tessa was then transported to UCLA Medical Center, where she received further medical care. The severity of the injury required immediate attention, including surgical intervention to address the damage caused by the shark's bite. Thankfully, the surgery was successful, and despite the severity of the attack, Tessa survived. Days after the attack, local fishermen caught a large tiger shark matching the description of the one involved in Tessa's attack. Authorities and marine biologists were called in to examine the shark. After determining that the attack was likely a case of mistaken identity, common for sharks that confuse kayaks with prey like seals, they decided to release the shark back into the ocean. The next story is a horrifying one, especially because there is actual footage from this terrifying shark incident that happened on March 23, 1994. Heather Boswell, a 19-year-old crew member aboard the Discoverer, was about to face a nightmare she never could have imagined. Heather, working in the galley of the Discoverer, was spending 6 months at sea as part of a research mission in the Pacific Ocean. It was a demanding but exhilarating experience, a chance to witness the wonders of the ocean firsthand while contributing to important scientific work. The crew had grown close over the long days on the ship, sharing stories, laughs, and the occasional longing for the comforts of home. On this particular day, 300 miles east of Easter Island, the team was in high spirits. The sun was shining and the ocean stretched endlessly around them, shimmering under the afternoon light. After a busy morning of work, the crew decided to take a break. 9 members, including Heather, eagerly jumped into the open ocean for a refreshing swim, hoping to cool off and unwind. The mood was light. Laughter and chatter filled the air as the group enjoyed a rare moment of relaxation. 3 other crew members watched from a rigid inflatable boat nearby, their job to keep an eye on the swimmers for any signs of trouble, while another colleague maintained a lookout from the deck of the Discoverer. The ship's towering presence was a reassuring sight, standing as their safe haven in the vastness of the Pacific. Most of the swimmers had been in the ocean for over an hour, while Heather had been in for about 45 minutes. Unbeknownst to them, a massive 20-foot great white shark was lurking just below the surface. When someone first shouted, "Shark!" many thought it was a joke, but as the reality set in, panic spread quickly. The shark moved toward the group, and Heather, just 25 feet away from the predator, had no idea that her life was about to change in an instant. The inflatable boat immediately noticed the danger and began picking up the swimmers, but the shark was closing in fast. Heather, still in the water, tried to make her way to the boat, but before she could reach safety, the shark lunged, grabbing her by the ankle and pulling her underwater. A crew member on the inflatable boat desperately tried to fend off the predator with a broom handle, reaching out from the boat, but it was too late. The shark had clamped down on Heather's leg, shaking her violently. Heather fought her way to the surface, gasping for air, but the shark struck again, this time clamping down on her left leg with brutal force. As the predator thrashed, Heather heard a sickening pop, the sound of her leg snapping as the shark's powerful jaws crushed bone and tore through flesh. In that agonizing moment, Heather knew her leg was gone, and the shark's relentless grip had left her with catastrophic injuries before it finally released her. Heather managed to break free from the shark's grip, and the inflatable boat crew frantically pulled her aboard. As the crew pulled Heather to safety, they battled fiercely to fend off the great white. The shark eventually stopped thrashing as the small boat sped toward the Discoverer, navigating the turbulent waters in a race against time. Once they reached the main vessel, Heather was carefully pulled onto the deck. On board the Discoverer, the crew quickly realized the severity of Heather's injuries. Her left leg had been brutally severed during the attack, and she was losing blood rapidly. With no medical team on board, the crew sprang into action. They applied pressure to her wounds, used a belt as a tourniquet. Despite the limited medical supplies, the crew's swift response helped keep Heather alive long enough for emergency transport. She was first taken to a local clinic in Panama, where she received immediate attention. From there, she was transported to an Army hospital in Panama, where doctors provided intensive care to manage her severe injuries, control infection, and stabilize her condition. Heather's recovery was a battle. but her strength and resilience shined through as she adapted to life after losing her leg. She later shared her story to educate others about the dangers of shark encounters, using her experience to raise awareness about the risks. On the afternoon of March 5, 2003, the sun shone brightly over Praia da Roça, a stunning stretch of coastline in Santa Catarina, Brazil, nestled between rugged cliffs and dense green hills. On weekends, locals flocked to its shores to enjoy the warm weather. Among the beachgoers that day was 28-year-old Luisa de Arruda, a resident of nearby Florianopolis, who had made it a cherished tradition to visit the beach with her two stepchildren, 14-year-old Lucas and 12-year-old Sofia. The three of them had come to Praia da Roça almost every weekend, seeking both fun and relaxation in the waters they loved. That day, around 100 people were scattered across the beach and in the water. It was a busy weekend, and the atmosphere felt lively and safe, filled with the sounds of laughter and relaxation. Lucas was an avid swimmer and had brought his diving goggles with him, excited to explore beneath the surface. The three of them swam about 50 feet from the shore. Lucas explored the depths with his diving gear, while Luisa and Sofia floated nearby, enjoying the gentle rise and fall of the waves. After nearly 10 minutes of swimming, the family started to feel their energy fade. Luisa suggested it was time to head back to shore. However, Lucas wasn't quite ready to leave. He wanted to take one last dive before they wrapped up their swim. With his goggles still in place, he took a final breath and submerged again. As usual, he scanned the seabed. But as he swam farther, something strange caught his attention. A large, dark shape moving in the distance. It was too big and purposeful to be a fish, unlike anything he had ever seen before. Lucas surfaced quickly, removing his goggles and turning to Luisa and Sofia. Urgently, he gestured toward the spot where he had seen the shape. A sense of panic gripped him as he explained that it might have been a shark. Startled, Luisa immediately turned her gaze toward the water, but before she could react, it was too late. Without warning, a massive great white shark surged from the depths. The 14-foot predator moved with terrifying speed, its jaws locking around Luisa's torso in an instant. The attack was swift and violent, dragging her beneath the water with overwhelming force. Lucas and Sofia, only a few feet away, were frozen in shock and horror as they watched their stepmother disappear below the surface. The tranquility of the day shattered in a matter of seconds. The children, now screaming, reached the beach, drawing the attention of both beachgoers and lifeguards. For a brief, agonizing moment, Luisa resurfaced, her arms flailing as she tried to signal for help. But before anyone could reach her, the shark pulled her under again, vanishing into the deep. Lifeguards raced into the water, swimming toward the spot where Luisa had vanished. But by the time they arrived, there was no trace of her. Lucas and Sofia, still in shock, were left paralyzed by the nightmare they had just witnessed. As the beach emptied in panic, the search for Luisa began. Boats and helicopters scoured the area into the evening and through the following day, but the hope of finding her alive quickly faded. The next day, only some viscera, including internal organs, washed up on a nearby beach confirming her death. Authorities swiftly identified the remains as belonging to Luisa, sealing the grim reality of the attack. An investigation followed, confirming that the great white shark, a rare visitor to southern Brazil's waters, was responsible. Lucas and Sofia were left traumatized, their weekend routine shattered by a nightmare they would never forget. Have you ever felt the thrill of cliff jumping? Well, after this story, you might think twice before taking that leap, especially if the waters below hide dangers lurking just beneath the surface. Our story takes us to Blue Haven, a stunning stretch of coastline in Esperance, Western Australia, known for its rugged beauty and crystal-clear waters, but also for frequent shark sightings. It was here, on a bright summer afternoon in January 2008, that the Foster siblings embarked on an adventure that would change their lives forever. Ryan Foster, 16, had always looked up to his older sisters, Ava, 21, and Chloe, 18. The siblings were close, constantly seeking out new adventures together. After spending the day on the beach around 4 p.m., they were ready for some excitement and soon found a 33-foot cliff. The quiet, isolated spot had only a few distant swimmers further out at sea. The sun glistened off the water as the trio made their way to the edge, the world falling away beneath them. Without hesitation, they jumped. The cool ocean was a refreshing break from the heat of the day. Ava and Chloe lingered near the cliffside, treading water and catching their breath, still smiling from the thrill of the leap. They stayed for a few minutes, enjoying the moment and cooling down, already talking about their next jump. Meanwhile, Ryan, still full of energy, swam a bit farther out, eager to explore the deeper water. The shimmering blue ocean seemed perfect, but beneath the surface, hidden dangers lurked. Suddenly, Ryan began splashing, struggling to stay afloat. Ava and Chloe, seeing him in the distance, thought he was playing, perhaps showing off or trying to prank them. But as his splashes became more frantic and he caught a breath to scream that there was a shark, their smiles vanished. In an instant, Ryan was pulled under and the water around him darkened with blood. Realizing the danger, Ava and Chloe sprang into action, swimming as fast as they could toward their brother. As they approached, the water erupted with violent splashes. They caught a glimpse of the distinct copper-brown body and dorsal fin of a 10-foot bronze whaler shark, thrashing before it disappeared into the depths. The shark had already delivered a severe bite to Ryan's left calf, puncturing deep into his leg. Ryan surfaced, screaming in pain, and Ava and Chloe quickly reached him, keeping him afloat as he cried out in agony. They knew they needed help fast. In the distance, they spotted jet skis, and without hesitation they waved and shouted for help, hoping their voices would be heard over the crashing waves. Further out, two young boys on jet skis noticed the frantic splashing and waving. Realizing something was terribly wrong, they sped toward the siblings. By the time the boys arrived, it became clear that a shark attack had happened. Ryan was in immediate danger from severe blood loss. Wasting no time, the boys pulled Ryan onto one of the jet skis and helped Ava and Chloe onto the other. They sped toward shore, reaching the beach in about 5 minutes, where lifeguards were stationed. Upon arrival, the lifeguards immediately sprang into action, stabilizing Ryan's wound and applying a tourniquet to his left calf to slow the bleeding. His skin was pale from blood loss, but they acted quickly, keeping him conscious until paramedics arrived. Thanks to the quick response from the boys on the jet skis and the fast action of the lifeguards, Ryan's life was saved. Though the bite from the bronze whaler shark was severe, the injury wasn't life-threatening once help arrived in time. After the attack, they swore never to enter the ocean again in these dangerous Australian waters. They had come seeking adventure, but found a terror far beyond anything they had imagined. Those were the 6 most horrific shark attacks on innocent human beings. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. It really supports the channel. Stay cautious out there in the water, and we'll see you in the next episode.